Hi, and welcome to the Peak Endurance Podcast. Episode 131 is an interview with Shawn Butler, author of the amazing sci-fi book Run, Lab, Rat, Run, which has Barkley marathons as one of its inspirations. So if you love sci-fi and you love running, you are sure going to love this book. Now, if you enjoy this episode, would you be able to do me a favour and subscribe and possibly even write a review? I really appreciate all your support and I love reading the reviews. Are you sick and tired of being injured or running in pain with those little niggles? Ensure you are ready for racing in 2022, fingers crossed, and come in and see the team at Health and High Performance. Learn to love running again by heading to healthhp.com.au/run, or you can find them on Instagram, Health High Performance. Wild Earth Australia are the online store to help you make the most of the outdoors with top quality gear at great prices. Peak Endurance Podcast listeners can use the discount code Peak Endurance, all capitals, to get 10% off at checkout. Head on over to wildearth.com.au to get everything you need for your next adventure. As I have so few running coaching places left, I have started a new program, Peak Mindset Coaching. This is one-on-one coaching sessions conducted over Zoom and recorded for your benefit and for you to keep, designed to specifically suit your needs of developing a peak performance mindset and approach to running. This will also be limited as it is a highly personalized service, so I recommend quickly getting onto my website, peakendurancecoaching.com.au, and filling out the form there to get yourself on the waiting list. So, if you are interested in getting Shawn's book, head to the show notes at the podcast, and there it will be. And now, if you think you have an interesting story to share that could go onto the podcast, and thus on YouTube here as well, email me, isabel@peakendurancecoaching.com.au, and you might end up being on the podcast too. Now, if you get value from this episode, as well as subscribing and writing a review, if you love it, you could and maybe share it with a friend, either on social media or directly. But if you do share it on socials, don't forget to tag me so I can thank you. Have a great week of running and training and have fun out there on the roads and trails, and stay safe there as well. Enjoy the episode. Quite challenging in that regard.
It sounded like a blast, actually. I love weather like
I know. I saw some video footage and it looked pretty good.
Yeah, I'd much prefer that to like hot and humid. So.
Yes. Yeah. So you love Barkley so much, you even wrote a book based on it, Run, Lab, Rat, Run, which we can see in the background there. Mm-hmm. Can you tell the listeners a bit about the book?
Sure. It was inspired by a number of things. Obviously, one of the most Barkley. So the race structure in the book is based on the Barkley, the 5-loop structure of the book. And because of that, Laz actually read it before it was released and kind of approved it. So make sure it wasn't saying anything terribly stupid. And he wrote the foreword for it when it came out. So I'm pretty honored to have his participation in that. So there was the extreme running aspect of it. There were a couple other inspirations. One is that there is a climb around Southern California in the United States that's very famous called Cactus to Clouds. It's a run up and down Skyline Trail up the top of Mount San Jacinto out of Palm Springs. The FKT on that route is held by Brett Monty, who is also, of course, favorite in the winner of the Barkley Marathons and the course record holder. So that kind of inspired me as well to kind of put those two things together. And then lastly, for reasons that I don't really want to go into, my family has kind of a strange history in eugenics and genetics. And so I wanted to write a book that pretty much declared pretty much everything that they stood for as ridiculous and dangerous. So it's about genetic engineering and the dangers of genetic engineering in future society. So,
yeah.
So I mashed those three things together into a race about genetically modified running.
Yeah. No, and obviously I've read it and I loved it. But I have to say, your vision of the future is a scary one, like you said. And my next question was, how did you get those ideas? So obviously you've had some pre-history with those sorts of ideas. What is it about those eugenics and genetic engineering that you are worried about?
I guess I worry about two separate things. I guess that come together. One is that we tend to slide into doing things that seem horrific from a distance in gradual steps. So if you look what's going on right now with a technology called CRISPR, which is about essentially genetically modifying, say, animals or people to cure diseases and things like that. So it's a very targeted way of doing genetic modifications. It's relatively new in history. The first time that gives us the chance to really change people in a fundamental way forever. So you can change them both, so their children actually change as well. And what that means is we might start off doing things like curing diseases, like genetic diseases. But then it will inevitably come to, oh, I want to cure some things like I want my children to be taller or better looking or run faster or have bigger lungs or stronger spleens or whatever the thing is popular at a point in time, or that can be sold and packaged up by a company into the world. So it seems almost inevitable that we'll reach that point in the next couple of years where you'll essentially have wealthy people being able to buy traits for their children that no one else can afford, right? Which brings me to the second concern, which is that the inevitable sort of combination of genetic engineering and class, right? If you look at that, what's going to happen is just like medicine today, where the rich people get the best medicine, the poor people take what they can afford, right? And with genetics, what happens is the rich will essentially be able to bioengineer their own children into a better class of people. So both the class of genetics and the class of monetary class become essentially the same thing. And I think that's a pretty terrifying prospect. It's not like we live in a society that doesn't have enough division already. I would hate to see a division that's sort of genetic division that becomes a permanent way of looking at class and people.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And that's primarily why I find it such a scary future because of that. Yeah. Now, you wrote the book from a female perspective. Why did you choose to do that?
I've been asked that before, and I don't really know the answer. I wrote my first book, which is actually coming out later next month, from a male perspective. And what people inevitably asked me when they read the book was, "Oh, is this you? Is this an autobiographical sort of representation?" So I think I just got tired of that question, and I said I'd like to write about someone who clearly is not me, and so I made this a mixed race woman running a marathon. So clearly that was not me.
Yeah. Now, and did you find it difficult to write from a female perspective?
Well, I think maybe the question is, did I find it difficult to write it well from the female perspective? I didn't. The character I wrote at first seemed okay. I ran it through several women readers and runners to make sure I captured a woman expressing herself as a woman and not just a guy expressing himself through a woman. But I think I got there eventually. I would say at first that I had sort of a brusque personality on the character. It took me some time to soften the edges out to make her seem more female, I guess.
And to be honest, I mean, she is a strong character, so I mean, that's fine as well.
Okay. No, it's very important to me she come across that way, but not that she come across as sort of me with,
No. I didn't think so at all. And what are your thoughts on a woman finishing Barkley? Do you think it'll ever happen?
I hope so. I very much hope so. There's no reason why not. I'm kind of blanking on the name right now. I think it's John Kelly, who's a finisher of Barkley, wrote an essay from a sort of data perspective about women finishing the Barkley, with his perspective being that it was certainly possible. And I 100% agree with what he said. I see no reason why a woman shouldn't finish the Barkley. I'm actually kind of surprised that women has finished yet. The only caveat I would say there is that if men keep finishing the Barkley and Laz keeps making it harder and harder over time, it will be harder and harder for that to happen, because there's that component of both endurance and strength and navigation and tenacity, all those things that come together where you have to pack down and have that perfect race, right, to be able to finish the Barkley. And so I hope that a woman finishes soon enough to inspire other women to know it's possible, so that people stop worrying about it and just start running the race, right, regardless of gender. So I very much think it's possible, but I think it should happen in the near future if possible, to make it easier for everyone else.
Yeah, I agree, because Laz does keep making it harder, and thus it gets harder, which obviously is his goal. But I do think Laz does want a female to finish.
Absolutely, yeah. I've never seen otherwise. I mean, he seems to let in a fair number of amazing athletes like yourself to run the race. So I think Courtney DeWalter's been in there. I know she has. I interviewed her. And Maggie. By the way, I don't know how you say her name. Is it Maggie Gutierrez? Gutierrez. I apologize.
Yeah.
Maggie Gutierrez finished it, or run it. So amazing athletes like yourself running the race. I think it's inevitable that they'll finish over time. So.
Yeah. No, I really hope so, and it'll be an exciting day. Few days when that happens.
Yeah, I mean, did you see when Courtney finished the UTMB this year?
Oh, amazing, hey?
And the crowd was, I mean, like, you were just so excited, right? I think how excited they'll be about the Barkley when she finishes that.
Yeah, that's right. No, just as it's sometimes hard for runners to get out the door to run every day, I assume it's the same for authors. How did you motivate yourself to write every day? Or did you write every day? Talk us through your writing process.
Oh my God, my writing process is kind of a mess. So in the writing world, there's two kinds of writers in novels. They're called pantsers and planners, right? So people who plan out a novel and people who just kind of go by the seat of their pants and start writing. I'm very much in that latter category. Sort of, I write what comes to my mind, and I hopefully get a plot out of it later on. I'm trying to change that because you end up throwing a lot out and rewriting a lot, as I've done with the books I've written so far. So my writing process now is more about trying to sit down every day and write, do a little bit of marketing in the book that's already out there, trying to sit down and do some more writing, and then plan a little bit for the next day, so I don't just wake up in the morning, have my cup of coffee, and then stare at the computer for an hour, wondering what's going on. So it's trying to be more disciplined about writing, a couple thousand words every day.
Yeah. And so do you have to work on when with running, I say, it's not about motivation to get out the door, it's about discipline. Would you feel it's the same?
I'm not sure. Like I said, I got into running fairly late in life, but I found that nevertheless, trail running is pretty much one of the only things I truly, really enjoy and love doing. So given the opportunity, I will run out the door and go running on a trail all day if I can, right? Writing for me is not quite like that. Running, I really enjoy writing, and the process of writing when it's going well. But when I'm sitting there staring at my computer very often, I'm like, no, I'd rather be running. So it takes a certain amount of discipline just to sit there and to do the work of it every day. And there are times for a week when I'll have great inspiration and creativity and it'll flow and it'll feel perfect. And there are other days when I will stare at the computer and check Facebook and look out the window and do nothing at all. So it very much depends.
Oh, I feel so much better knowing that you do that too then.
Very much so, yeah. That was especially true during COVID because I'm not the most social person and extrovert, but what I did notice is being locked down in my house all the time, I had this desperate need for social interaction that wasn't being met, and it sort of interfered with everything else. So I couldn't focus on my writing or anything else. And so as soon as we could get outdoors and start running again and running with other people, a lot of that went away and that kind of anxiety went away. But that was definitely an issue during the lockdown. I mean, I can't imagine how you're still handling it, but for me, I needed some kind of interaction just to survive. Right?
I know the feeling of anxiety. That's pretty much constant during lockdown for me anyway.
Yeah. Not a lot of fun.
Yeah. So, that's interesting. So how are you going to make yourself be a planner then?
Well, I think it's just trying it over and over again until it sticks. I think it's a lot like running, right? I'm trying to move my running to being more of a hill striker, being more of a toe striker. So that takes concentrating when I'm running on the flats or on relatively small uphills. And so I'm trying to work on that to improve my form a little bit. And it's the same thing with writing. I'm trying to write outlines and then trying to actually stick to the outlines. So far, mixed results. But the novel I'm writing is supposed to come out in February has an actual outline and a structure to it, which I've managed to stick to so far. So if that works out, that will save me a lot of time and energy and hopefully be motivation to keep repeating that process.
I just find it interesting and really interested in knowing all of that. Now, you had a couple of options for the title of this book. What made you choose Run Lab Rat Run?
Well, I went through a lot. I don't know if you remember, but I had like 55 different cover options and different names and everything else. And I could not really pick one for a long time. The initial title was just Modified.
That's right.
That was it. And a lot of people were like, that's kind of a boring name, doesn't really say anything. So I went around looking for better names. I went through some really terrible names. My friends really hated. And then for a while, the book was called Dead Girl Running, which sort of had a thriller kind of aspect to it, which I kind of liked. But it turns out, of course, that's already a book that came out 2 years ago. So I didn't want to call it the same thing as some other book with the same name.
There you go.
So I ended up with Run Lab Rat Run, largely because A, it came to me and it seemed to work, and B, because playing on the words actually works for the sequel and the one that comes out after that. So.
Okay, so we were just talking about how you chose the title, and you said you'd had a few different ones, and you chose not to use Modified or what was it, Dead Girl Running? Dead Girl Running,
because Dead Girl Running was already being used by another author.
And so
anyway, I went looking for other names that were better or different or available. And I stumbled upon Run Lab Rat Run because it fit a pattern that I wanted to be able to use for future books in the series. So
that's right,
the next book in the series has a similar title with a different play on words. So it allowed me to kind of keep playing that out throughout the trilogy.
Yeah, no, and that's good to be thinking in advance as well, I guess. So what's the next title that people should be looking out for?
I'm not going to tell you just yet. It's still a working title. But it fits the same pattern. So you might think of something like die, lab rat, die, or something like that.
Yeah. And I find also just it looks good on the cover with everything 3 letters, like.
Yeah, so that's the idea, to maintain that pattern going forward. So you can probably figure it out if you go look for all the 3-letter words that have something to do with running. You kind of figure it out.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great. Now, is there anything you wanted to that I may not have touched on about the book that you'd like to share with the listeners?
No, I think one of the challenges for me was that I think when I started writing, I thought, oh, I'll write a book about genetics and running and the Barkley Marathon. There'll be so many people interested. And what I kind of realized from a marketing perspective is I narrowed my niche market down to a very small number of people who like all 3 things. So I've learned from that a little bit. So I'm still kind of marketing about it. So it's actually important for me that people understand that even if you don't ever run at all and you're not an ultra runner, it's still just hopefully a very good science fiction book. You don't need to have any of that background to run in. I think that was a sentence. So trying to overcome that a little bit with the marketing and trying to make sure people understand that it's just a science fiction book that you can read. But obviously, if you like running and you like the Barkley, you'll find even more there of interest for yourself. Yeah,
no, definitely. I mean, I just find it was I like science fiction, so that helps. I loved it, and I really find that you created, like, I could really imagine it. Your words created a very good picture in my head.
Good. Yeah, did you like the character herself?
Yes, I did. Yes, yeah. I mean, she had her moments, but I'll do, I guess. but yeah, she was a tough character. But I just find all the genetic modifications. I find that made me feel nervous.
Yeah.
I don't know how to explain it, but yeah. But in an enjoyable way of the book. But like I said, to me, that vision of the future was scary, and scary because I know it is possible.
Yeah, well, I'm glad. I'm not glad it made you nervous or anxious.
No.
Clearly you have enough of that, but I'm glad that it came across that way.
Yeah, and it wasn't nervous and anxious like bad, like lockdown. It's more like I like it when a book makes me feel something. So it was good.
Okay.
Yeah. Good. Yeah. All right. So now I'm going to go. I've got my little lucky dip box of questions, and I'm going to ask you a couple of questions, and let's hope it works. All righty. Let's see. All righty. Would you rather, and you've got to tell me why as well, would you rather be rich, famous, or happy?
Wow. Interesting. I think personally, I'd rather be happy.
Yeah.
I think that, a life where you're rich and famous but miserable doesn't sound like a lot of fun.
No.
And, I've had my moments of depression and anxiety in my life, so I know what that feels like. So I'd much rather choose a life where I don't feel like that most of the time. Having said that, from a political perspective, if rich and famous meant that I had the ability to influence the future and make changes to make the world a better place, I could deal with a little bit of unhappiness. So it sort of depends what, the mix of things is. I'd like all 3.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love all 3, quite frankly. Well, I can live without famous. I'd just like to be rich and happy.
Exactly.
All righty, that one's no good. Oh, it's just because these are ones I used to use with the school kids, you see. So that one's related to school.
Well, hopefully I did almost as well as the school kid.
Yeah, no, you did very well. And most of them chose happy, but sometimes they just choose rich. They didn't care. What do you like to do for fun?
I like to run when I can run, obviously. I also do a lot of hiking still. And in the winter, I'll tend to do a lot more skiing when there's good snow in the mountains in Southern California, which has been pretty bad couple of years, but hopefully more skiing. And then, of course, getting out every once in a while to actually see friends and sort of enjoy life. So usual stuff. I would not mind going back to the beach and having a drink on the beach with some friends. We're looking forward to that.
That sounds really good. Yep. All righty, last question. What foreign country would you like to visit?
Oh, there are a lot of them. I would say Australia, of course. So I'd love to go to Australia.
Oh, don't recommend it.
Not right now. But I've been to Australia. I had a great time. The people were wonderful. So I loved Australia. I loved New Zealand. But honestly, right now, all the pictures I see online that make me crazy and sort of like travel hungry are either of Norway or Iceland. So just beautiful trails and outdoors and the majestic scenery and just the raw nature looks really exciting. Plus, I think that right now, Killian Hornet lives in I don't know if it's Sweden or Norway or Finland, but he's living somewhere where he's doing a lot of outdoor running in one of those countries where it's stunningly beautiful. And I wouldn't mind partaking a little bit. How about yourself?
Yeah. Oh, I agree that I would love to go personally to Iceland and then also I'd like to go to Nepal.
Oh, Nepal, yeah.
Yeah. Have you been there?
I have not. I thought a long time ago when I was climbing mountains still I'd like to do Everest, but ever since Everest became kind of a tourist hotspot, I've sort of lost interest in that. I'd still like to do some hiking in the Himalayas, I guess, just to see the other mountains. I'd like to go to K2 for base camp trek, things like that.
Yeah. So many places to go, so little time and money, huh?
Yeah, exactly. Plus in the lockdown, you can't really travel, so it doesn't help.
No, well, we can't even go out of our suburbs, so kind of,
Oh, that's no good. That's no good.
Yeah, that's all right.
Yeah, I have
We'll
a
get
question
there.
for you. So have you, I mean, in your mind, if you're training for the Barkley, and I guess, am I allowed to say that or ask that?
Yeah.
Okay. Then are you training for it now, or do you start training at a certain point in the future, or what's your plan? Because I saw you were doing navigation training, and I wasn't sure if that was part of it.
Yeah, the navigation training is for Barkley, and yes, I am basically training for Barkley. I mean, I still have to re-enter and do all that sort of stuff, but yeah, it should hopefully roll over. Yeah.
And was there something you learned from the last time that you're focused on, especially other than navigation?
The navigation, basically, and being faster at the start.
Oh, at the start, okay. You felt you started off too slowly?
Yeah, I did, because to be able to keep up with the veterans, you need to go faster, because they try to run away from the virgins, you see.
Oh, yeah. So I guess in order to make sure you stay on the trail easier, it's better to follow the veterans, but they probably want to drop you for the same reason. So
yeah, that's right. And also, and that's why I need to work on the nav to ensure that no matter what, I'm okay on my own.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that sounds very exciting. I can't wait to see you there. So
yeah. Well, fingers crossed, it all comes together.
No, I'm sure it will. It better.
Yeah, better. I know. Yes. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. If people want to buy your book, what is the best place for them to go to?
They can search for Run Lab Rat Run on Amazon.com or on Goodreads if they want to go that way. They can also go to my website, ShawnCButler.com, ShawnCButler.com, if they want to do that. But if you look for Run Lab Rat Run online, you won't have any trouble finding it. So it's pretty unique.
All right. Well, I'll put those links in anyway. And what about if people want to follow you on socials to see what's happening with your books and that sort of thing? Is there any way?
I'm on Facebook under Shawn C. Butler, author. Very clever name. And I'm also on Twitter under Shawn C. Butler. I think you can find me that way as well. And I can send you those links as well if you'd like.
Yeah, that'd be great. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time.
No, thank you very much. It's been great.
Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye.